Welcome back, brothers, tourists, and ladies, to another episode of the Chapter House, where we take a look into the chapters and men who make up the Old Glory Club. I'm your host, NotMeNotYou, and joining us tonight is the Old Line League from the great state of Maryland, one of the most slept on states, I think, in the entire country. But we can get into that. Joining us, representing the Old Line League, is Fat Barbarian. How are you, sir?
Good evening. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here.
That's great, brother. I hope your spirits are as high as your cholesterol, and we can really get into this. And also joining us tonight is Dutch, the man who first took down a predator. How are you, sir?
Very good. I am here. No,
See,
it's good to be here.
We got the man himself. Well, I'm glad that you guys could join us. And you know, I think the only thing that people really know about Maryland is Baltimore. But you guys are also very, very close to the heart of the beast in Washington. So I guess these are all things that we can get into a little bit later. But first, can you tell us a little bit about what is the Old Line?
All right. The Old Line is a reference to the Maryland 400, who were members of a regiment in the Revolutionary War who fought at the Battle of Long Island. So this battle did not go terribly well for the Continentals, and we had to retreat. And during that retreat, in order to avoid a total rout, these men from Maryland did a number of essentially suicide charges. So about 400 against 2,000, which delayed the British troops and enabled the rest of the Continentals to make a retreat. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the exact total.
Sir, we've got some other stuff up on screen right here. Sorry about that. Yeah, please continue, Fat Barbarian.
Yeah, excellent. So I think the British were at like 30,000 people at the start of the battle, and the Continentals were like 19,000. So we're talking it wasn't actually even 400 people. It was almost 300, but it's called the 400. And so they're holding off thousands of men while Washington's escaping across the, basically where the Brooklyn Bridge is right now. And through the, they're like going through the swamp and then like crossing on boats. So without this, almost, 300 men holding off this, British horde, the revolution could have been lost.
Yep, probably couldn't go with 300 because that was taken by the Spartans. So, we needed something similar but couldn't reuse that. And
so you guys rounded up. That makes sense.
That's right, as you do. Not everyone died, unlike with the 300. You go first.
The architecture is beautiful. And there's like clearly.
Of course, the historical thing that most people probably associate with Maryland is the Battle of Fort McHenry, War of 1812, Star Spangled Banner, all of that. So that is a point of pride. Fort McHenry is very cool. If you're ever in our neck of the woods, we could take you back out there. We've been a couple of times as a chapter. That's another one of those great sort of tales of endurance and bravery, where you got the defenders of Fort McHenry just kind of hunkering down under the storm of steel because the British ships could shoot further than the cannons on the fort. So they pretty much just had to hold out, prevent those ships from backing up the land forces, which were trying to make inroads against dug-in Americans at the time, were no longer Continentals. And they held out, and we got our national anthem out of it.
Yes, actually, what the bridge you were talking about, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, that's about where Francis Scott Key would have been held by the British on a ship while they were bombarding the fort. Because the deal was, in order to support their ground invasion of Baltimore, they needed to get past the fort. And if they got close enough to the fort could take out the ships. But as long as they stayed far enough away, they could just sort of bombard the fort. So they did that, hoping that the fort would relent, and then they'd be able to support their ground invasion. But I guess the land defenders in Baltimore were able to repel the land invasion, due to the lack of ship support, and then the ships had to give up.
Yeah, the Americans were outnumbered on land, but they were also dug in. So the British weren't able to overcome that without the support from the sea, which they weren't able to get.
Well, it's good that Baltimore's got this history. You said that the architecture really, how would you say it? It makes you hopeful for America that was. What do you feel when you're looking at that architecture?
That's a deep question, but I'll let him answer.
No, I was just gonna let you go since you brought it up.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Yeah, you feel like the pain of loss because I'll give you one good example. I was driving around near my house, and I stumbled upon this like amazing, creepy, abandoned complex. And there was a very large building that looked like a school on steroids, but it had massive windows and doors and giant columns. And it was a more impressive building than anything I've seen that's been built in my lifetime. And so it's sad that the place was closed, but also, there's something foreboding about this. And I realized that I was actually at an abandoned mental hospital. And so like one thing I realized is this massive complex that I was wandering around in my car, like puzzling as to what it was. This is kind of like the story of like the corruption and the drug abuse in Baltimore, because this place got defunded and abandoned sometime in the 80s or 70s. And now all of those people are just running loose in Baltimore. And so like, it's almost like the scale of the beauty that's been abandoned is sort of like proportionate to the institutions that should be serving the city. And it's a little bit overwhelming because, the city is kind of at the scale where it is kind of like a little bit beyond what I guess what a more rural person like I am used to.
And even the less grand elements of the city have life to them. I mean, that was grand. What you just mentioned was grand in sort of a macabre way. I suppose so is this. I'm thinking about Edgar Allan Poe's house. And a lot of East Coast cities will have these older houses and buildings that aren't grand but have survived. And the density of those is interesting. So I mean, if you've been elsewhere in the United States, you don't have things that old, particularly on the West Coast, at least in my experience out there. And of course, the Europeans will say, that's nothing. I was born in a house 300 years old. But it's what we have. It's what we have that persists. So, to see it doesn't persist unscathed. I think we've all seen go around on Twitter there's a post every so often about how they used to have these marble steps on the row houses, right? You see those things of, look at these people back in, when would those pictures have been taken? 40s maybe, taking great pride in their marble steps. Those are all gone now, of course. Those didn't persist because I suppose they were valuable. So I don't know. I suppose there's a wistfulness to it, you know, as the barbarian mentioned, men among the ruins.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it being something. This might be over dramatizing it a little bit, but it's almost as if, well, it literally is you guys standing amongst the ruins of a once great city, of a once great civilization, and it is. Barbarian was had a nice insight there when he said it was, kind of the end state of the Faustian experiment, because once we decided not to look outward, we started turning inward for our horizons, and then the great equality experiment. Barbarian, that story of the abandoned asylum, that is very interesting, because even when Baltimore was at its height, what you seem to be saying is that they would make these almost grand temples to healing, because despite the bad media, the bad image that asylums have been given in by all movies and television basically since the 70s 80s, they were supposed to be houses of healing. So to see that kind of fall into disrepair and ruin from a place of grandeur is very interesting. It's very interesting to contemplate.
What it feels like is, when you look at the building, this is like a physical form of authority that has been basically abandoned.
Yeah, I mean that. Sorry, go ahead, Dutch.
Oh, I was just going to say, to your point, there's no reason for anything not to be beautiful that you're going to build, really. Like, if you have the choice to build a beautiful asylum or an ugly one, why would you ever choose the ugly one? And yet that's what we seem to do.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's when you're trying to demoralize a conquered people. I suppose that's a good way to do it, but without going too far down that way. If you guys have this in the forefront of your brain, Baltimore was once a wonderful city, and I think Tucker Carlson recently mentioned it on a stream where he was talking about the Great Replacement. And do you guys know about when Baltimore started taking the turn for the worse?
Yeah, I actually I wandered into a Lithuanian cultural hall's historical room, and there was an old man in there who told me that the story of Baltimore. He was kind of like the Onceler from the Lorax, and essentially what he said was, when the boys went away to World War II, all of that heavy industry in Baltimore, was left fallow. And so that's when the industrialists and the politicians brought in, a certain demographic of people from the South. And then when the war ended, people just they weren't willing to live with the new demographic mix. And so in the 50s, you started to have a lot of turmoil and tension, which I think is also a thing that happened throughout the North in general around like the 50s and 60s, which resulted in the race riots and so forth in the 1960s, and eventually led to the flight of white America into the suburbs. And so it's essentially that's what happened. You had a particular beautiful Catholic church in downtown Baltimore called St. Alphonsus. That used to be a German church. The Germans went to the war in Europe. They came home, they abandoned it. Then it became a Lithuanian church. Then the Lithuanians abandoned it once they were wealthy enough to get out of the city. And now it's this sort of like besieged sacred temple, like in a rough neighborhood in Baltimore, that people drive into even though they don't live near it.
Is this one of those things where the park be fence around the entire thing?
Oh, it's a little bit worse than that. You just kind of take your chances there. You park on the street, and the Usually they'd have a few parishioners sort of, you know, armed and watching the doors, and an unarmed security guard, and that it's basically just like the fact that they're armed men around that keeps the criminals at bay.
I mean, that's kind of insane to think about. Now, is this like I know this is getting into the kind of the nitty gritty, but is this like a private security force that's contracted out, or are these just parishioners?
Both. So, yeah, I went to this church for about a year, like 2 years ago, and yeah, they would pay for at least like 1 or 2 security guards during, you know, the high mass or, you know, the important mass. If they had a service at night, the Baltimore police would actually come and just, like, you know, park outside of the church, you know, when everyone was leaving. That way everyone could get to their cars safely.
Mayor, but I am glad to hear that you know, the police are at least taking that seriously. You know, with the little that I hear out of the Baltimore it doesn't seem like they'd be too interested in protecting something like that, especially seeing the mayor.
Well, that's the nice thing about Baltimore. You know, there is an upside. So it has this, you know, like the large scale beauty has been abandoned, but there's still the small scale beauty of people working together, like regular everyday people who aren't like DC people. These are people who are from Maryland. They live in Baltimore. They have history there, and you know, they're you know, like the productive people of Baltimore kind of cling around the inner harbor, where you still have sort of this like human scale architecture. You know, so it's not these like machine made doors. Like everything is like clearly made for a human body, and it's you know, there's that Wrath of Ganon coziness there, and that is a really nice thing. It's nice to go downtown and just hang out in this, you know, very unassuming place where everyone's a regular person.
All right, so there's still some good areas of Baltimore. I mean, this story seems to be the story of all major American cities, especially in the Northeast and really the North in general. Out as far as Chicago, the Great Migration kind of ruins the city for a lot of people. But talking a little bit more recently, I know that the historic Black populations of these cities are usually very hostile towards the new Americans that are being brought in en masse. Has Baltimore kind of caught any large dumps of immigrants on it?
I think there's so much support for that in the general region due to DC that Baltimore is a little bit strange. It, you know, it doesn't have that Minnesota energy. We didn't even do any 2020 riots here. It, you know, it's in some ways Baltimore is a sleepier city.
Yeah, my impression, not supported by data, is that new Americans are very prevalent in the suburbs and in the other smaller metropolitan areas of of Maryland, like Frederick. So, you know, that's a more suburban, spread out area. A lot of people in it, though. Americans there, and in the more toward the DC suburbs. And I'm sure you see some walking around Baltimore, but the density is not so high.
Actually, that does bring up a question that I have. Are there like decent I mean, obviously you said around the Bay is where most of the productive Americans live, but in like the center of Baltimore and the more densely urban, more densely populated areas, is it just like what, you know? So, and like most millennials, our understanding of Baltimore comes from the HBO show The Wire. Is so that image in my head like, is it really that bad all over Baltimore, or is it just relegated to a few areas?
All over? No. But certain areas, I think that's fairly accurate. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
It looks like something, that has been consumed. So there are just like tumors everywhere, but then in between tumors, it's just like a nice area. So, and then you go like 2 blocks in either direction, and it's basically the wire.
It can be in that you will have these, corporate office buildings that are immediately adjacent to these ghettos. Maybe that's not terribly strange, but it is odd that someone will be commuting in with a very normal job. And it's like, do not stop in this particular stretch, until you get to where you're going.
I mean, that isn't super strange. It's a little strange to hear that being talked about of an American city. When you just said that, I'm reminded of Johannesburg, South Africa, and what happened there after apartheid ended. But I imagine these office buildings in basically the ghetto have very tight security.
So this is secondhand information, so I can't give you details on that. Just that, the proximity was striking.
Well, I mean, that is very interesting. Getting away from the city of Baltimore, Fat Barbarian, did you start your Rube Goldberg machine? Is the chapter, the Old Line League. So
Yes.
when you guys are like, when you guys have people contacting you for membership, are they mostly, like, this would make sense, mostly in the Baltimore area because it's the most well populated, but Maryland is more than just the Baltimore area. Do you guys get people out from the boonies?
Yeah, we're kind of all over. So if you've seen Maryland on a map, it's kind of strangely shaped. It's sort of like a big key, so it has a very long western spike. There's also the Chesapeake Bay, which kind of cuts off the eastern side of the state, which borders Delaware. So we tend to be all over. There's obviously a handful from Baltimore as it's the most dense, but we've got guys out west too, and also in the middle. So most everywhere.
I will say the bay seems to be, impassable for people. People are willing to drive 2 hours east, but no one's willing to drive around the bay. So almost all of our members are they're on the western side. I suspect that if there are people on the eastern shore, that they're either joining like Delaware Crossing Society, or they'll eventually start their own like Eastern Shore chapter.
Well, the Eastern Shore is quite far, but I imagine you guys have people who hop over Kent Island. Is that just a bridge, or is it a ferry?
It's a bridge. Well, does a bridge go over Kent Island?
Well, there are 2 bridges on either side, and yes, we actually do have a guy who will be joining us, I believe, according to him. But he had to pull out for a few months because he just had a child.
I mean, it's good to hear more of our guys are having kids. That actually makes me curious. What's the age demographic like in the Old Line League?
I think we're on the older side for an OGC chapter. We tend to be 30s. We have some guys who are older. I don't know if we have anyone under 30. We might, but it tends to be around the 30s.
That is very interesting. I do think that is an anomaly, at least insofar as I'm aware. This is the 25th episode, so who knows, maybe next week's guest will all be in their 40s and 50s. I don't know myself, but so when you guys got started, typically from a chapter, you see a lot of the older guys will be able to provide kind of a guidance and a structure, whereas the younger guys are the ones who are kind of all full of piss and vinegar, and they want to get a lot done. Have you guys? How is that kind of shaped up? Having some more of the older guys who have the experience of years when it comes to like things that you guys want to pursue as a chapter.
I think there's a lot more intrinsic understanding, that to do things, you just have to do them. People just show up. So we haven't had some of the rough start that I think, I've seen when trying to work with people who are a little bit younger and less experienced.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say our flakiness quotient is very low. And maybe I would say that we generally proceed prudently. So not as fast as some, maybe, but if there's something that we're going to do, we're going to actually do it.
That's great. So you haven't really hit any of those roadblocks where you get people who say they're really interested in something and then they kind of get distracted and either don't do it or let it fall by the wayside.
Everyone's ability to invest time ebbs and flows because people have real lives, and that's just natural. But I don't think that we've had these massive tidal swings that can cause severe damage to an organization, when everyone's kind of just checked out. We've avoided that with a steady street. Like we're getting together, we're doing things, and that kind of fraternity keeps it alive, even when it's just our regularly scheduled get-togethers. We're still seeing each other and we're still kicking around ideas for when we got more time.
I mean, that's wonderful. What kind of things do you guys get together on?
So, I mean, the simplest one is just getting together for dinner and discussion, right? But I think a lot of us have an interest in the skill building aspect. So one of our cooler skill building activities was learning to slaughter chickens. So we got some chickens, we got together, we killed them, we gutted them, we ate one. I mean, the cooking, we had a little mishap, but we did our best with that bird.
Yeah, we went to shoot guns while the bird was cooking, and we came back to less bird than we would have hoped.
Wait. So was it consumed by fire or consumed by an animal?
Fire. No animals. Yeah, it was a man-made disaster, you could say.
Okay, well, we'll chalk that one up to a burnt offering.
Yeah, over exuberance, perhaps.
So you said, oh, sorry, keep going.
Other than that, we've done some historical hikes, maybe not a hike, walks. So, very common among our guys. We did one we went to Fort McHenry multiple times, but one time in the interest of doing a tour and seeing the grounds and where the men were. It was also actually a prison during the Civil War. Or no, I got that wrong. It was that the guns were turned the other way on the city, right? Barbarian, help me remember.
That is correct.
Yeah. So very interesting there. And let's see, what else did we do? Oh, we went into DC for another historical tour. So that is convenient, and that any DC related things, and there's a lot to do in DC, despite the governing that goes on there. So that is actually a resource in that way.
When you say there's a lot to do, you mean there's the museums and there's the restaurants. So is that what you're angling
monuments? The National Mall, all of the Jefferson Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, World War II, or what else we got? We got the Vietnam. Just there's a number of fantastic monuments. Some that we don't care for so much. But there's a lot of history, obviously, and so that's great for our guys.
Yeah, of course. I mean that's an awesome thing for you guys to be so close to. I feel the same kind of way, a little envious for the guys in Virginia and other people who have a wealth of battlefields that they can tour. Now, I'm sure that there are some in my area as well, but they're a little bit, I should say, they're a little bit more forgotten. You kind of have to go out of your way to find them because the locals aren't super keen on history in general. It's a weird New England thing. I don't know. But you guys said that you slaughtered the chicken. Do you guys have somebody who raises them?
We contacted a farmer for that, but fortunately, we did have a member who knows how to gut a bird, so he was able to instruct the rest of us.
So did you guys just have a couple chickens, or did everyone get their own chicken?
Oh, everybody got his own.
Oh, that's awesome.
You gotta get your hands in there. You're gonna learn this. So I thought that was a very valuable experience. I mean, I am not a hunter, but I think I have nothing against hunting, just never really had the opportunity to go. And I think getting your hands on this animal that you're going to eat, there's a real reality to that. That I thought it was very interesting experiencing that, because you're holding this chicken. It's like, I'm sorry, buddy, but this is your day, but I will appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting thing. I once, this was in the annals of shit posting, I believe on 4chan many years ago, where I think it was a video of a bull moose getting hit with an arrow and it pierced its lung. And in the video, it's frothing blood at the mouth and it's spinning around trying to get this arrow out of its side. And then it falls down dead. And the point of the video was the post talking about how, when you've killed an animal and watched it in its death throes and heard its death throes and then had to experience butchering it, that they understood why the pagans would worship animals in nature because of the sacrifice that these things have to give in order to sustain us. And that when you're telling me that you guys all got together to slaughter chickens together, maybe in the moment there's not that kind of time or impetus for that kind of reflection, but the shared experience, I imagine, must be one that's quite easy to bond over.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely there. There's like there is an element to taking lives, with your brothers that is, that does unite you in a way, and there's that gratitude element is definitely there. And then there's also just like there's something primordial about it, because like this is like how human beings survive, and so you are just sort of like getting in touch with like base reality, I think, when you are literally living off of the land in some sense, and just eating an animal that you have in your hands, and then like 30 minutes later, it's ready to be over a fire.
Yeah, it's immediate. You're to quote Uncle Ted, you're engaging with the power process. So it reminds me of the feeling of when you're doing something like backpacking, or you're out where you must do the things that you need to do to survive, because they're not just going to happen without your input. Like if you don't make camp, then who's going to do it? Are you going to sleep outside? Like it's not going to be good today. And that is extremely vivifying.
Yeah, it's like a cold plunge. It's like, okay, you're gonna cut the neck off right now. All right, you're going to cut open the stomach and you're going to pull out the innards right now. You're not going to think about it. It's just what has to be done. It's not that big of a deal if you have to do it every day, but it is one of those things where you are dealing with, death and the death of a living thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of. Go ahead, Dutch.
Oh, I was just going to say that our experience of doing this, I think, was also much more human than, industrial scale slaughter, because we were outside. There was just a handful of us with hand tools. It wasn't like, something comes by on the conveyor belt and you're just kind of processing it. Like, there is a process, of course, but you're doing it by hand, one at a time, with, some assistance. Like, we boiled water, so we used a stove to do that. Could have built a fire, I suppose, but the stove was easier for the water.
Yeah, what you're saying is it's a much more personal experience. And Fat Barbarian, what you were saying about, this, you were both talking about this, but Dutch brought up Uncle Ted. But in a world of surrogate activities, this isn't an actual activity. This is there's no simulation here. And I think when we formed the Old Glory Club, it was specifically to get people together in person and offline so that these bonds can become real, because you can't form real bonds with people online with an avatar, with a voice, with a shit post. That's all surrogate activity. So this is this is all very encouraging stuff to hear that you guys are sharing together. And you also mentioned the camping. I'm a big fan myself of cold weather camping. And what you were saying about who's going to build camp, in the dead of February in New England, if you don't have enough wood to make it through the night, you might not freeze to death, but you're definitely not going to get any sleep, because you're going to be out foraging for all the stuff you should have gotten when the sun was still up. So it's definitely good to break those surrogate activities, or that pattern of living surrogate activities. Do you guys have any hunters in the club?
We do. We have a few of them, at least two.
Well, I'd be really interested to know if you guys end up going on a hunt at some point. That'd be something I'd love to hear about.
Yeah, we'll let you know. That we haven't embarked on that one yet. But I do see us making use of at least our little portion of the Appalachian Trail at some point in the future. Because we've got about, how much goes through Maryland, Barbarian? You remember? I want to say it's about 40 miles or so.
No, I couldn't put a number on it, but I would assume more than that, but at least that.
Yeah. So I see us getting out there and doing that as well in terms of, this type of activity.
Yeah, that's great. The Appalachian Trail. If you guys could take it up to the 100-mile wilderness, make a couple months out of it, I'm sure that would be a hell of a thing. But like you were saying, older guys with families. Actually, you didn't mention. Do a lot of the members have kids?
Many do. Let me think. So, of our current membership, more than half, yeah. So most, in fact, have families.
Well, that's also wonderful to hear. Hopefully this is something that you guys can pass down. I wanted to ask you guys a question. This was something that came up quite a bit during the Bluestone Heritage League episode, with the proximity to DC. Do you guys are you guys a little bit more careful with your vetting? Is that something that you guys keep in mind?
Well, one reason I think we keep it in mind is a lot of us work for the federal government, so we're more used to OPSEC and security because we need to do that for our jobs. And so I apply that mindset when I'm vetting people for the chapter.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we have. Let's see. It's not so much that we're trying to ferret out the spies per se, but like I mentioned before about how I would say we're generally prudent, is that we're not in a rush. And if someone is in a rush, it's like, what's your deal, man? We're just trying to. Time seems to be the best way you can kind of get a feel for someone.
Yeah, their time preference. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's funny to me to think that the old Lion League is the old Glory Club's Fed chapter. So that's going to be in my head from now on. But no, I think I understand what you're saying. Any chapter can have infiltrators, especially if they're near a city or a university. Not that when we talk about infiltrators, like the Old Glory Club's not a political organization, but we live in such times when groups of American men get together for the betterment of themselves and the places they live in, that is seen as politically coded by a large number of people in the United States, and not just politically coded, but one that needs to be fought against. So I understand that the need for that kind of, I guess, security mindedness isn't necessarily larger for you guys than for anyone else. But something that I wonder with DC is the prevalence of strivers, the kinds of people who, Miami. Well, what's the old saying? You go to New York City for money, you go to Washington D.C. for power, and you go to Miami for sex. And out of all three of those cities, the types of people that are going to be attracted to them for those like main offerings might be not the sort that you're looking for when it comes to a low time preference, long-term relationship building. Do you guys have a lot of transients, people who aren't native to the area that are looking to join?
No, surprisingly. And when I went to graduate school down in DC or towards DC, and everyone was transient. So a lot of people in this area are just moving through, or they're just here for a job. So I do think it says something about the pool of people who are interested in OGC, that we're mostly getting people who are a little bit more rooted to the earth.
Yeah, that was my experience I went to undergrad, I believe, where he went to graduate school. And the prevalence of New Jersey natives was, frankly, appalling. Just truly awful. But we haven't had those types. We've had a surprising number of people with very deep roots to Maryland apply. We've had a few of those stories.
Well, I mean, that's great to hear, especially in a state, like I said, my exposure to Maryland's history is slim and I'm sure dimly remembered, but it is, one of the originals. So I am glad to know that there are still people who, have their heritage in Maryland that are interested in doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things, because I think one of the things that people who don't really know anything about Maryland would associate with it is the line between North and South, right? And that is an interesting part of the state's history. It's reflected on the flag, in fact, as kind of a truce between these two sides. So the flag, if you know what it looks like, it's broken up into 4 quadrants. 2 of the quadrants have this black and gold design. The other 2 quadrants have this red and white. Those represent factions that were broadly associated with one side or the other. So, which is to say that you do have these people here who you might think have more in common with your stereotypical Virginian. They just don't tend to live in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, the Maryland flag is one that I think everyone knows. Of all the state flags, that seems to be everyone's favorite. Very striking. And we actually do have a super chat about that. So let's hop on over to the super chats real quick. Christopher Burke 458 coming in with a salute. Well, we salute you, sir. That is, it's always good to see the salute in the chat. F Constraints for $2, very Faustian. Shout out to my state brethren, best state flag. Many are saying this. Is he one of your brothers?
It's not an alias that I recognize, but he very well may be.
Hey, there you go. Or maybe a future member.
That's right. If you're not, contact us. The Old Line League at protonmail.com.
Old Line League at protonmail.com. No the.
That is correct.
All right. $2 from Solid Snake, 1964, real, not the imposters that we've got running around. Another salute from your brethren in the Home Range Society. So you're getting shout outs from all over the place. South
Nice.
Mountain Rebel for $4.99. Salute to my Maryland brethren. Another one of yours.
Once again, not a name I recognize, and I believe the avatar there is General Lee. I see him right.
Unfortunately, I'm not looking at the chat. If I do that, I'll get distracted by the lumpins.
Maybe. Yes, the trucks. Well, maybe one of our friends to the south.
Beautiful. Sean Schaefer for $3. The real question is: Maryland a southern or northern state? You kind of touched on this. What say you?
Maryland is an occupied southern state.
Now
it's
a good answer.
The yin and yang. It's the will to power.
that is a superb answer. So there you go, Sean Schaefer. Take that one to the bank. And our favorite Australian, Don Browning. Wait, I still don't know what that means, and I hope to never find out because the mystery is more fun. But it sends us $10 Australian and a super sticker of an anthropomorphic hippo doing an uppercut with KO written above it. Well, there you go. That's one for you guys. I'm sure Maryland knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, I'll hold that close to my heart.
Beautiful. So did you guys have any members that made it to the East Coast Forum that recently?
We had nearly 100% attendance. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad to know that glad to hear that you guys are getting out there and meeting some of your brothers in other states. So when's the boxing match getting set up between you guys and Vetus Dominium?
Oh, whenever Harvey and his boys are ready, we're going to throw down. So, I mean, the invitation is open.
That's perfect. Let us know. What do you guys have coming up? Do you guys have any events in the planning? Any like outings? Anything that you would want to extend to your brothers?
So not all.
What?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead
first.
Yep. Oh, just one thing I think we should do this year is it basically have a large interchapter camping trip. So I was basically going to just get a quote for a campground and then put out an invite and see who shows up. It would be a low marginal cost activity with room for a large number of people.
I mean, that sounds amazing. My vote on that would be make it during the absolute worst weather you can imagine, but it's your guys' event. So.
All right, it's tomorrow then. We're going out in the snow.
Perfect. I mean, I'm going to need a little bit more time to plan and get my stuff together. But
other than that, I've started doing a little research for an Annapolis historical tour. So we'll put the word out to the local chapters around there. Shouldn't be too far for too many of the Bluestone guys, or for some of them at least. So we will have that. Otherwise, I think that's about what we can discuss right now.
Well, that's awesome. We still have a little bit of time. Was there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to bring up? Want to let the world know what was going on in the Old Line League?
Well, some of the more interesting things, Maryland-wise, that people may not know. So, being one of the original 13, we were founded as a under royal charter to the Lords Baltimore, hence the name. And the Battle of the Severn was a battle, some would call it the final battle of the English Civil War, was actually fought very near to Annapolis here. So that's going way back. You don't usually think about Cromwell's injection into American history, but there you go. So we've got some real old, history back before even what we call, when you think of the Revolutionary War. This is 100 years prior. We have some interesting stuff going on. I do not know if that's a battlefield that's marked in any way, but
I mean, that is very interesting. I would like to look into that a little bit more. So to wrap it up, I always ask a version of this question. But if there's any advice, any hurdles you overcame, anything you can give, any words of wisdom to your brothers on conducting the chapter, how to come together as a group of men, anything in that vein, what would it be?
If you have a bunch of guys who are kind of on the fence about proceeding with something, then you, listener, you just say you're going to do it. Right? Like, frequently it seems that we'll be the place of like, oh, this seems like we all kind of want to do this, but I don't know. Should I be the one? Just you do it, and it'll be fine. Right? Everyone else will be fine with it. If you do a really horrible job, someone else will step up instead, but you probably won't. And I think that artificial hurdle kind of prevents guys from getting off the ground.
Yeah, you don't have to be an expert in something to start doing it. You just have to start doing it, and you win some, you lose some. Like sometimes we'll put out like a call, like we're going to do something, and only like 2 or 3 people show up, and other times it's 12 people, and you win some, you lose some, but it's not a big deal. It's okay. We overthink things, I think.
And both of those also have value. Even when you have 12 people, you can't actually have one conversation with 12 people, which is great to have everyone together. But if you only get 2 or 3, then you've got yourself a single high quality conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful thing to keep in mind. And to echo what you guys said, you can just do things. Somebody's got to be the first mover, and why not you? Well, thank you, Old Line League from the great state of Maryland, Dutch Fat Barbarian. This has been a wonderful episode. Thank you for joining us.
It was a pleasure.